She came to the mansion as a tutor, but the billionaire saw his better half he'd been searching for. Francisca Dipasquale had exactly $300 in her bank account and a master's degree she couldn't afford to frame when she knocked on the door of the Gee estate in Charleston. She thought she was there to teach a 10-year-old math. She had no idea she was about to meet the man who would turn her entire world upside down, or that he'd been waiting his whole life for someone exactly like her. If you're new here, hit that like button right now and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. I want to hear from every corner of the world. And if you're one of my amazing returning viewers, thank you. You know I always bring you stories that hit different. Stay until the very end because this one's special. Trust me, you won't want to miss a single moment. Now let me take you to Charleston, South Carolina, where Spanish moss hangs like curtains from ancient oak trees, and where Francisca's life was about to change forever. The wrought iron gates of the Gee estate opened with a mechanical whisper that somehow sounded expensive. Francisca gripped the steering wheel of her 15-year-old Honda, the one with the check engine light that had been on for 6 months, and tried not to feel completely out of place as she drove down a driveway lined with magnolia trees. The main house rose before her like something out of a dream. No, scratch that. Like something out of a magazine spread she'd never be able to afford. White columns. Expansive porches. Windows that probably cost more than her entire year's rent. The kind of beautiful that made her acutely aware of the coffee stain on her blouse that she'd tried to cover with a cardigan. Francisca was 34 years old, and she'd been teaching for 12 years. Master's degree in education. Certifications in special needs instruction. A decade of pouring her heart into classrooms that were always underfunded and overcrowded. And now she was driving to a mansion in Charleston's historic district to tutor the child of someone so wealthy they didn't even list a price in the job posting. Just said, compensation commensurate with experience, which was rich people code for, we'll pay whatever because money doesn't matter to us. She needed this job. Desperately. Her mother's medical bills from last year's stroke had decimated what little savings she'd managed to scrape together. The school where she'd been teaching had closed unexpectedly, leaving her unemployed at the worst possible time. And her apartment lease was up in 2 months with rent increasing by $400 she absolutely did not have, so here she was. Pulling up to a mansion. About to tutor some rich kid who probably had every advantage in the world while she was 1 bad month away from moving back in with her mother in her childhood bedroom. Francisca parked her car, trying not to notice how shabby it looked next to the gleaming vehicles in the circular drive, and grabbed her worn leather bag. She'd packed it carefully. Example lesson plans, references, her teaching portfolio. Everything to prove she was worth whatever astronomical fee they'd agreed to pay. The front door opened before she could knock. A woman in her 60s with kind eyes and a crisp uniform smiled at her. You must be Ms. Dipasquale. I'm Margaret, the house manager. Please, come in. The foyer alone was bigger than Francisca's entire apartment. Marble floors. A chandelier that looked like it belonged in a palace. A sweeping staircase that curved up to the 2nd floor. Original artwork on the walls, and not prints, actual paintings that probably had insurance policies. Mr. Gee will be with you shortly, Margaret said, leading her toward what appeared to be a library. He's just finishing up a call. Can I get you anything? Coffee, tea, water. Water would be great, thank you. Francisca stood in the library after Margaret left, trying not to gape at the floor-to-ceiling bookshelves filled with actual books. Not just decorator books. Real books with cracked spines and worn covers that showed they'd been read. Loved. Her fingers itched to pull one down and flip through it. Beautiful, aren't they? The voice came from behind her, deep, warm, with a slight drawl that spoke of South Carolina roots despite the polish of obvious wealth and education. Francisca turned, and forgot how to breathe. The man standing in the doorway was the most gorgeous human being she'd ever seen in person. Tall, easily 6'2", with dark hair that had just enough silver at the temples to suggest he was in his late 30s. Eyes so intensely blue they reminded her of the ocean during golden hour. Strong jaw. Broad shoulders in a navy suit that fit him like it had been made specifically for his body. Which it probably had been. That he smiled, and Francisca felt something flip in her chest. Kenneth Gee, he said, crossing the room with his hand extended. "Thank you so much for coming on such short notice." His handshake was firm, confident, his hand warm against hers. And when their eyes met, Francisca felt a jolt of recognition that made no sense because she'd never met this man before in her life. "Francisca Dipasquale," she managed, proud that her voice didn't shake. "It's nice to meet you." "Francisca." He said her name slowly, like he was tasting it. "That's beautiful. Italian. My father's side. He passed when I was young, but Ma kept the name." Something flickered in Kenneth's eyes. Understanding, maybe. Or empathy. "I'm sorry for your loss. I lost my parents in a boating accident when I was 25. It never really stops hurting, does it?" The unexpected vulnerability caught her off guard. Rich people, especially rich white men, didn't usually share things like that within the first 2 minutes of meeting. They kept walls up. Kept things professional and distant. "No," Francisca said softly. "It doesn't. You just learn to carry it differently." Kenneth held her gaze for a moment longer than was strictly professional. Then he seemed to shake himself. "Please, sit. Can I get you anything? Margaret's probably already offered, but she makes excellent coffee if you'd like some." "I'm fine, thank you." Francisca sat in one of the leather chairs, acutely aware of how Kenneth's eyes followed her movement. Not in a creepy way. More like he was genuinely interested. Paying attention, he sat across from her, and even the way he moved was graceful. Confident without being arrogant. "So, thank you again for responding to the posting so quickly. I realize the timeline was rushed. Your message said it was urgent." Francisca pulled out her portfolio. "You mentioned your daughter needs help with mathematics and reading comprehension?" "Ella. She's 10. Kenneth's entire face softened when he mentioned his daughter. "Brilliant kid. Creative, funny, kind. But she's struggling in school, and I'm concerned because she wasn't always like this. Something changed about 6 months ago, and her grades started slipping." Francisca made notes. "What kind of changes? Is she having trouble understanding the material, or is it more about motivation? Attention? That's the thing, I don't know. Her teachers say she seems distracted. Not engaged. But when I ask her about it, she just says everything's fine." Kenneth ran a hand through his hair, and Francisca noticed how the gesture made him look younger. More vulnerable. "I'm probably being an overprotective father. But she's all I have. Her mother and I divorced when Ella was 2, and her mother moved to Europe. She sends birthday cards, but that's about it. So it's just been the 2 of us for 8 years now." Single father. Devoted to his daughter. Worried about her well-being. Francisca felt her heart do another one of those dangerous flips. "That's not overprotective," she said firmly. "That's being a good parent. You notice changes in your child, and you're taking action. Too many parents dismiss academic struggles as laziness or rebellion when there's usually something deeper going on." Kenneth's expression shifted. Relief, maybe. Or gratitude. "That's exactly what I've been thinking. But I'm in over my head here. I run a tech company, Gee Enterprises, and I'm good at that. But 10-year-old girls? I'm learning as I go." Francisca smiled. "Most of us are. Parenting doesn't come with a manual, no matter how much money you have or what degrees you've earned." "Thank you for that." Kenneth leaned forward, elbows on his knees, completely focused on her. "Your application was impressive. Master's degree from College of Charleston. 12 years teaching experience. Specializations in learning differences and gifted education. But what really caught my attention was your reference letter from Principal Morrison. She said you're the kind of teacher kids remember their whole lives. The one who makes them feel seen." Francisca's throat tightened. She'd worked with Principal Morrison for 7 years before the school closed. Hearing that her mentor had written something so beautiful made her eyes sting with unexpected tears. "That's the goal," she said quietly. "Every kid deserves to feel seen. To feel like they matter." Kenneth's blue eyes studied her with an intensity that made her skin feel warm. "I believe you mean that." "I do." "Then you're hired. If you want the position." Francisca blinked. "Don't you want to see my lesson plans? Watch me interact with your daughter first. Check my teaching methods. I've done extensive background checks. I hope you don't mind, but when it comes to my daughter, I'm thorough. You're exactly who I've been looking for. Someone who actually cares. Someone who'll see Ella as a person, not just another student." He named a salary that made Francisca's head spin. "Does that work for you?" It was 3 times what she'd been making at the school. 3 times. With that kind of money, she could pay off her mother's medical bills. Save for the future. Actually have a cushion for emergencies. That's very generous. It's fair compensation for someone of your caliber." Kenneth stood, extending his hand again. "So, do we have a deal?" Francisca stood and shook his hand, trying to ignore the way her pulse jumped at his touch. "We have a deal." "Excellent." Kenneth's smile was brilliant. "When can you start?" "Whenever you need me." "How about now? Ella gets home from school in about 30 minutes. I'd love for you two to meet." And just like that, Francisca's life shifted. She'd walked into this mansion thinking she was taking a temporary tutoring job, a stopgap measure until she found another teaching position. She had no idea she'd just met the man who would change everything. Kenneth Gee stood at the window of his study, watching Francisca's old Honda disappear down the driveway after that first meeting with Ella had gone better than he could have hoped. His daughter, his brilliant, beautiful, complicated daughter, had actually smiled, laughed, engaged with the math problems Francisca had gently introduced in a way that felt like play rather than work. But it wasn't Ella's response that had Kenneth's mind spinning. It was Francisca herself. Kenneth was 38 years old. He'd built Gee Enterprises from nothing into a tech company worth $3 billion. He'd been featured in Forbes, Businessweek, and every major tech publication. He'd dated models, actresses, socialites, beautiful women who fit perfectly into his world of charity galas and business dinners and private jets. And not one of them had ever made him feel the way Francisca Dipasquale had in that library. What would you do? If you met someone and felt that instant connection, that pull that makes no logical sense, would you trust it? Or would you write it off as attraction and nothing more? Tell me in the comments because I want to know your thoughts. When Francisca had walked into his library, Kenneth had felt something shift in his chest. Recognition. Like his soul had been waiting for her specifically and finally exhaled in relief when she appeared. Which was insane. He didn't believe in love at first sight. He was a logical man. A businessman. He made decisions based on data and facts and strategic planning, not feelings and instinct. But there was something about the way Francisca had looked at his books with genuine reverence. The way she'd spoken about his parents' death with understanding rather than pity. The fire in her eyes when she'd talked about making kids feel seen. And God, she was beautiful. Not in the polished, Instagram filter way he was used to. In a real way. Rich brown skin that glowed in the afternoon light. Natural hair pulled back in a simple bun that showed off the elegant line of her neck. Curves that her modest clothes couldn't hide. Light brown eyes that looked almost gold when she smiled. But it was more than physical attraction. It was the intelligence in those eyes. The passion in her voice when she talked about teaching. The gentleness in her hands when she'd shown Ella how to break down a complex math problem into manageable pieces. Kenneth had interviewed 6 other tutors before Francisca. All qualified. All experienced. All perfectly fine. But none of them had been her. His phone buzzed. His business partner and best friend, Rafferty Lawson. "Tell me you hired someone," Rafferty said without preamble. "Because Ella's principal called me, yes. She called me because apparently I'm your emergency contact, and said Ella's math test scores are getting concerning. I hired someone." She started today. Thank God. What's he like? Another one of those prep school educators with a stick up his. She, Kenneth interrupted. Her name is Francisca Dipasquale. And she's perfect. Silence. Then, perfect? You used the word perfect to describe a tutor? Who are you and what have you done with Kenneth Gee? Kenneth laughed despite himself. She's good with Ella. That's what I meant. Aha. Is she single? That's none of my business. Which means yes, you already checked. Rafferty's voice was smug. Is she hot? That's definitely none of my business. So yes. Kenneth, man, you sound different. You sound interested. I'm interested in helping my daughter succeed academically. Right. Keep telling yourself that. Rafferty paused. But seriously, be careful. You're her employer. That's a complicated power dynamic. Don't be that guy. Kenneth sobered. I won't. I would never. This is about Ella, not about me. Good. Because Ella needs stability right now, not her dad dating her tutor and potentially making things weird. After they hung up, Kenneth stared out at the Charleston skyline visible from his study window. Rafferty was right. Of course he was right. Francisca worked for him. She was here for Ella. And Kenneth had no business thinking about the way her eyes had lit up when she talked about teaching, or the gentle curve of her smile, or the way his name had sounded in her voice. This was a professional relationship. Period. Even if his heart had other ideas. Francisca sat in her apartment that evening, the one-bedroom place with a leaky faucet she couldn't afford to fix properly, and tried to process what had just happened. She'd tutored dozens of kids over the years. Wealthy kids, poor kids, kids with learning disabilities, gifted kids who were bored in regular classrooms. She'd seen every kind of parent, helicopter parents who hovered over every assignment, absent parents who outsourced everything, parents who saw their kids as status symbols rather than humans. Kenneth Gee was none of those things. He was present. Attentive. He knew his daughter's favorite subjects, art and creative writing, her least favorite, anything involving numbers, her fears, thunderstorms and disappointing her father, and her dreams, becoming a children's book author and illustrator. He asked thoughtful questions about teaching methodologies. He listened, actually listened, to her answers. He trusted her professional judgment without questioning every decision. And he'd looked at her like she was the answer to a question he'd been asking for a very long time. Francisca shook her head. That was ridiculous. Kenneth Gee was a billionaire. He probably looked at everyone like that, with that intense focus that made you feel like you were the only person in the world. Her phone rang. Her mother, Paloma. Mija, how did it go? Did you get the job? I got it, Ma. And you won't believe the salary. Francisca named the figure, and heard her mother's sharp intake of breath. That much. For tutoring. The father, Mr. Gee, he's serious about his daughter's education. And Ma, the little girl is wonderful. Ella. She's 10, brilliant, creative. A little sad, I think. Her mother left when she was a baby. That poor child. Paloma's voice softened with the maternal empathy that had made her the neighborhood's unofficial second mother for decades. And the father. What's he like? Francisca hesitated. Professional. Kind. He clearly adores his daughter. But nothing. He's my employer. That's all. Francisca Marie Dipasquale, I raised you better than to lie to your mama. What aren't you telling me? Francisca sighed. Her mother had always been able to read her like one of the romance novels she loved. He's gorgeous, Ma. Like movie star gorgeous. And he's smart and funny, and when he talks about his daughter, his whole face lights up. And when he looked at me. When he looked at you, what? It felt like coming home, Francisca whispered. Which is crazy because I just met him. And he's white and rich and lives in a world I'll never be part of. And he's my boss. So it doesn't matter what I felt. Paloma was quiet for a moment. Mija, you know what your abuela used to say? Which thing? She said a lot of things. She used to say that love doesn't check your bank account or your skin color. Love just knocks on your heart and asks to be let in. Paloma's voice was gentle. I'm not saying this man is your love story. But don't dismiss what you feel just because it seems complicated. Sometimes the best things in life are complicated. After they hung up, Francisca sat in the darkness of her apartment and let herself admit something she'd been trying to deny all evening. She was attracted to Kenneth Gee. Deeply, powerfully attracted in a way she hadn't been to anyone in years. Maybe ever. But attraction meant nothing. She'd been hurt before, badly, by a man who'd seemed perfect until she realized he wanted her to be smaller, quieter, less ambitious. A man who'd seen her dreams as competition rather than partnership. Kenneth Gee was her employer. This was a job. A very well-paying, desperately needed job that would let her help her mother and build a stable future. She couldn't risk that for a feeling that probably wasn't even real. Even if every instinct she had was screaming that Kenneth Gee was different. Special. The kind of man she'd stopped believing existed. 3 weeks into tutoring Ella, Francisca had established a comfortable routine. She came to the mansion every weekday at 3:30, worked with Ella until 6, and tried very hard not to notice that Kenneth had started finding excuses to be home during those hours. He'd bring them snacks, fresh fruit and expensive cheese she'd never heard of. He'd pop his head in to ask how things were going. He'd linger in the doorway of the study where they worked, watching Francisca teach with an expression she couldn't quite read. And every single time she saw him, her heart did that annoying flip that reminded her she was in serious trouble. Miss Dipasquale. Ella's voice pulled her back to the present. You're staring at nothing again. Francisca blinked. Sorry, sweetheart. Where were we? You were helping me with fractions, but you've been looking at the door for like 5 minutes. Ella's light brown eyes, so like her father's, studied Francisca with disturbing perception. Are you waiting for my dad? What? No. I was just thinking about lesson plans. Aha. Ella's expression was far too knowing for a 10-year-old. He watches you too, you know. When you're not looking. He gets this weird smile. Francisca's cheeks heated. Your father is just being a good parent. He's checking on your progress. Sure. That's why he asked Margaret what your favorite coffee is. And why he bought that fancy art book you mentioned liking. And why he, Ella. Francisca tried to sound stern and failed. We should focus on math. Math is boring. This is way more interesting. Ella leaned forward conspiratorially. Do you like him? My dad, I mean. Because I think he likes you. This was dangerous territory. Inappropriate territory. Francisca needed to shut this down immediately. But there was something so hopeful in Ella's expression. Something vulnerable and young and desperate for connection. Your father is a very nice man, Francisca said carefully. And I'm grateful to work for him. But Ella, sweetie, I'm here for you. To help you with school. That's what matters. But what if? The study door opened. Kenneth walked in carrying a tray with 3 glasses of lemonade and a plate of cookies that smelled homemade. Margaret made cookies, he announced. Thought you two might need a break. Ella immediately grabbed 2 cookies and a glass of lemonade. Thanks, Dad. Miss Dipasquale was just telling me about how much she likes you. Francisca choked on air. I was not, that's not, Ella. Ella grinned, completely unrepentant. I'm going to eat these in my room. I'll be back in 10 minutes for more math. She practically skipped out of the study, leaving Francisca and Kenneth alone in charged silence. I'm so sorry, Francisca said immediately. I don't know what she's talking about. I never said, it's okay. Kenneth set the tray down and handed her a glass of lemonade. His fingers brushed hers, and she felt that spark again. The one she'd been trying to ignore for 3 weeks. Ella's been pushing me to date for the past year. She sees a single woman within 10 miles of me and starts matchmaking. Oh. Francisca didn't know if she was relieved or disappointed. So this happens a lot? Not like this. Kenneth's blue eyes locked on hers. Usually, I shut it down immediately. Make it clear that my personal life is private and not up for discussion. Usually, you make it hard to shut down. The words were quiet, honest, laced with something that made Francisca's pulse race. Francisca, I want to be clear, you work for me. You're here for Ella. I would never do anything to make you uncomfortable or to compromise your position. But I also can't pretend I don't notice you. I can't pretend that seeing you with my daughter doesn't make me think about things I have no business thinking about. Francisca should step back. Should remind him they couldn't do this. Should protect herself and this job she desperately needed. Instead, she said, "What kind of things?" Kenneth moved closer. Not touching her. Not crowding her. Just close enough that she could smell his cologne, something subtle and expensive that made her think of ocean breezes and summer nights. Things like how you look when you laugh at one of Ella's terrible jokes. How your eyes light up when she finally understands a concept she's been struggling with. How you twist your hair around your finger when you're thinking. His voice dropped lower. How it might feel to kiss you. Francisca's breath caught. Kenneth, I know. He stepped back, putting professional distance between them. I know this is complicated. I know I'm your employer and you need this job and I have no right to say any of this. But I also promised myself a long time ago that I'd be honest. That I wouldn't play games or hide what I'm feeling. What are you feeling? Kenneth's smile was rueful. Like I've been waiting my whole life for someone exactly like you. Like, every conversation we have makes me want more. Like the 3 hours you're in this house are the best part of my day. He ran a hand through his hair. And like I'm completely terrified because I don't want to screw this up. Have you ever had someone be that honest with you? Just lay their feelings out there without games or manipulation. Tell me in the comments, would you trust it? Or would you be scared? Francisca's heart was hammering so hard she could hear it in her ears. I need this job. My mother has medical bills. I have rent. I can't afford to lose this position. You won't. Kenneth's voice was fierce. No matter what happens, or doesn't happen, between us, you have this job for as long as you want it. That's non-negotiable. Your position here is based on your incredible work with Ella, not on anything else. But what if things get messy? What if we try something and it doesn't work and then everything's awkward? Then we deal with it like adults. Kenneth's expression was serious. But Francisca, I'm not suggesting we jump into anything. I'm just asking if I can take you to dinner. Just the two of us. Away from this house and my daughter and all the professional boundaries. One evening where we can see if what I'm feeling, what I think you might be feeling too, is real or just wishful thinking. Francisca knew what the smart answer was. The safe answer. The answer that protected her job and her heart and kept everything uncomplicated. But she was so tired of being safe. So tired of pushing aside what she wanted because it seemed impractical or risky or above her station. One dinner, she heard herself say. But Kenneth, I need you to understand something. I'm not like the women you're probably used to dating. I can't afford designer clothes. I drive a 15-year-old Honda with a check engine light that won't turn off. I live in a tiny apartment in a not great neighborhood. And I come with baggage, a sick mother, student loans, a history of being treated like I'm not enough by men who couldn't handle a woman with her own dreams. Kenneth's expression softened. Francisca, I don't want you to be like anyone else. I want you exactly as you are. The woman who spends an extra hour after she's supposed to leave because Ella's struggling with a concept. The woman who brings homemade flashcards and finds creative ways to make learning fun. The woman who talks to my daughter like she's a person worth listening to, not just a kid to manage. Francisca's eyes stung with unexpected tears. Okay. Okay. One dinner. But Kenneth, I need time. Time to make sure this is real. Time to protect my heart. Time to figure out if we can actually make something work when our worlds are so different. We have all the time you need. Kenneth's smile was gentle, genuine. How about Saturday? I know a place in downtown Charleston. Quiet, intimate, best low-country cooking you've ever tasted. Very casual. No pressure. Saturday works. They stood there for a moment, just looking at each other, the air between them charged with possibility and fear and hope. Then Ella's voice rang out from upstairs. Are you guys kissing yet? Because if not, you're taking way too long. Kenneth laughed, and the tension broke. My daughter, the romantic. She just wants you to be happy, Francisca said softly. She wants both of us to be happy. Kenneth's eyes held hers. And maybe she's smarter than we are. As Francisca drove home that evening, her mind was spinning. She'd just agreed to go on a date with Kenneth Gee, her boss. A billionaire. A man so far out of her league they weren't even playing the same sport. But when she closed her eyes, all she could see was the way he'd looked at her. Like she was precious, important, worth waiting for. And for the first time in a very long time, Francisca let herself hope that maybe, just maybe, this could be something real. Saturday arrived too quickly and not nearly fast enough. Francisca stood in front of her closet, such as it was, trying to figure out what to wear to dinner with a billionaire. Everything she owned seemed wrong. Too casual. Too worn. Too cheap. Her phone rang. Paloma, checking in for the third time that day. Ma, I love you, but you need to relax. I'm your mother. Relaxing is not in my job description. Paloma's voice was warm with affection. What are you wearing? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Everything I own is either teacher clothes or sweatpants. What about that blue dress? The one you wore to my birthday dinner last year. Francisca pulled it out. Simple cotton dress in deep blue that brought out the gold in her eyes. Modest but flattering. Nothing fancy, but it was clean and fit well. I don't want to look like I'm trying too hard, Francisca said. But I also don't want to look like I don't care. Mija, you could wear a paper bag and still be beautiful. But wear the blue dress. You look happy in that dress. And happiness is the prettiest thing any woman can wear. Francisca smiled despite her nerves. When did you become a fortune cookie? When my daughter started dating a billionaire. I have to sound wise. Paloma paused. Francisca, are you scared? Terrified. Why? Francisca sat on her bed, the blue dress in her lap. Because what if I'm not enough? What if he realizes I don't fit in his world? What if this is just curiosity on his part? Or worse, what if it's pity? That man does not pity you. Paloma's voice was firm. I heard it in your voice when you talked about him. He sees you, Mija. Really sees you. And if he's as smart as you say he is, he knows exactly how lucky he'd be to have you in his life. But Ma, I'm so different from what he's used to. His ex-wife is a European model. The women in his social circle probably have personal shoppers and trust funds. You're just a woman with a master's degree who dedicated her life to helping children. Just a woman who worked 2 jobs to help pay my medical bills without complaining once. Just a woman who makes everyone around her feel seen and valued. Paloma's voice gentled. Baby, you're not just anything. You're extraordinary. And if Kenneth Gee can't see that, then he's not as smart as you think he is. After they hung up, Francisca got dressed in the blue dress. She kept her makeup simple. Mascara, lip gloss, a touch of blush. She wore her natural hair down, loose curls framing her face. Small gold earrings her father had given her mother decades ago. When she looked in the mirror, she saw herself. Not trying to be someone she wasn't. Not apologizing for not being polished enough or rich enough or anything enough. Just Francisca. And maybe that was enough. Kenneth picked her up at 7 in a car that was nice but not ostentatious. A Mercedes that was clearly expensive but not flashy. When she opened her apartment door, his expression made her breath catch. "You're beautiful," he said simply. "No games. No smooth lines. Just honest appreciation." "Thank you. You look nice too." Nice was an understatement. Kenneth wore dark jeans and a white button-down shirt with the sleeves rolled up to reveal tanned forearms. Casual but put together. Relaxed but still distinctly Kenneth. "Ready." He offered his arm like a gentleman from another era. Francisca took it, trying not to notice how solid and warm he felt. "Ready." The restaurant was in a converted historic building in downtown Charleston, all exposed brick and soft lighting and the kind of intimate atmosphere that made everything feel hushed and special. Not ostentatious. Not trying too hard to impress. Just beautiful in an understated way. The host greeted Kenneth by name. "Mr. Gee, wonderful to see you again. Your usual table." They were led to a corner booth with a view of the courtyard, where fairy lights sparkled in the ancient oak trees. It was romantic without being overwhelming. Private without feeling secluded. "Do you come here often?" Francisca asked as they settled in. "I used to. Before Ella. Before life got so busy that I forgot to do anything but work." Kenneth's smile was self-deprecating. "This was actually one of my favorite places when I first moved back to Charleston. The food's incredible, but it's also just peaceful. You can actually have a conversation without shouting over music or crowds." A server appeared with menus and water. "Can I start you off with something to drink?" "Do you like wine?" Kenneth asked Francisca. "They have an excellent wine list, but we can also order something else if you prefer." "Wine sounds perfect." Kenneth ordered a bottle that probably cost more than her monthly grocery budget. When the server left, he leaned forward, his full attention on Francisca. "Tell me something I don't know about you," he said. "Something that's not in your job application or teaching portfolio. Something real." Francisca took a sip of water, buying time. "What do you want to know?" "Everything. But let's start small. What made you want to be a teacher?" No one ever asked her that. They asked about her credentials, her methods, her classroom management skills. But no one asked about the why. "My fourth-grade teacher, Mrs. Chen," Francisca said. "I was struggling. My father had just died, my mother was working 3 jobs, and I was angry at the world. I acted out constantly. Most teachers just wrote me off as a problem kid. But Mrs. Chen saw through the anger to the pain underneath." Kenneth's hand moved across the table, stopping just short of touching hers. "An offer, not a demand." Francisca took his hand, feeling that spark travel up her arm. "She stayed after school with me every day for 3 months, Francisca continued. "Helped me with homework, sure. But mostly she just talked to me. Listened to me. Made me feel like my feelings mattered. Like I mattered." Francisca's eyes stung with the memory. "She gave me books, stories about kids who'd survived hard things and come out stronger. She told me that feelings were meant to be felt, not stuffed down. And slowly, I started healing." "She saved you," Kenneth said softly. "She did. And I thought, if one teacher could change my entire trajectory, imagine what I could do if I became one. If I could be that person for other kids who felt broken and alone." Kenneth's thumb stroked over her knuckles. "You are that person. I see it with Ella. The way she lights up when you walk in the door. The way she started engaging with school again instead of just going through the motions. Ella's special. She just needed someone to pay attention." "So do you." Kenneth's blue eyes held hers. "You spend so much time taking care of everyone else, your students, your mother, even my daughter now. But who takes care of you, Francisca?" The question hit harder than it should have. "I take care of myself." "Do you?" Kenneth's voice was gentle, not judging. "Or do you just keep going because stopping feels selfish?" Francisca felt her defenses rising. "I'm fine. I didn't say you weren't fine. I'm saying you deserve more than fine." Kenneth squeezed her hand. You deserve someone who sees how hard you work and appreciates it. Someone who wants to make your life easier, not harder. Someone who thinks taking care of you would be a privilege, not a burden. Kenneth, I know. It's too much too soon. I'm being too intense. He smiled ruefully. My friends tell me I do that. I get focused on something or someone, and I can't help but go all in. Is that what this is? You going all in on me? Maybe. Is that okay? Francisca should say no. Should pump the brakes. Should protect herself from getting hurt. Instead, she said, tell me something I don't know about you. Something real. Kenneth's expression shifted. Became more vulnerable. I'm lonely. I know that sounds ridiculous given everything I have. The company, the wealth, the house. But I wake up every morning in that mansion and it feels empty. I have business associates and acquaintances, but real friends? People who care about me and not my bank account? Those are rare. You have Rafferty, Francisca pointed out. She'd met Kenneth's business partner briefly when he'd stopped by the house earlier that week. I do. And I'm grateful for him. But Francisca, there's a difference between having a best friend and having someone to build a life with. Someone to wake up next to. Someone to share the small moments with, not just the big ones. Your ex-wife was a mistake from start to finish. Kenneth's voice was matter-of-fact, not bitter. We married too young, for the wrong reasons. She wanted the lifestyle, and I wanted to prove I could build something permanent. It was doomed from the beginning. The only good thing that came from it was Ella. The wine arrived, and they ordered food, she-crab soup, shrimp and grits, fried green tomatoes. Dishes that were quintessentially Southern and absolutely delicious, as they ate. Conversation flowed easily. Kenneth asked about her childhood in Charleston, her relationship with her mother, her dreams beyond teaching. Francisca found herself sharing things she rarely told anyone, her secret love of terrible reality TV, her habit of naming her houseplants, the fact that she cried every single time she watched the ending of The Notebook, no matter how many times she'd seen it. Every time. Kenneth's eyes sparkled with amusement. Even though you know what's going to happen? Especially because I know what's going to happen. Francisca laughed. That kind of love, choosing each other every single day for decades, it's beautiful, and rare, and worth crying over. You're a romantic. Is that a bad thing? It's a beautiful thing. Kenneth's expression grew serious. Francisca, I need to tell you something. And I need you to hear it not as your employer, but just as Kenneth. A man who's sitting across from a woman he finds fascinating. Francisca's heart rate kicked up. Okay. I haven't dated seriously in 5 years. Not since my divorce was finalized. I've gone on dates, sure, business dinners, charity events, setups from well-meaning friends. But nothing real. Nothing that made me want more than one evening. Why not? Because I was looking for something specific. Someone who could handle my world but wasn't defined by it. Someone who'd love my daughter and make her a priority. Someone intelligent and passionate and real. Kenneth's hand found hers again across the table. Someone like you. You don't know me well enough to say that. Don't I? Kenneth challenged gently. I know you arrived at my house 20 minutes early on your first day because you're never late. I know you bring extra supplies from your own money because you can't stand the thought of a student going without. I know you called your mother during your lunch break every single day this week to check on her physical therapy. I know you volunteer at a literacy program on Saturday mornings when you could be sleeping in. Francisca stared at him. How do you know all that? Because I pay attention. Because everything about you fascinates me. Because I can't help but notice every detail. Kenneth's voice dropped. And because I'm falling for you, Francisca. Fast and hard and completely against any logical thought. And I know it's too soon and too much, but I promised myself I'd be honest. So there it is. I'm falling for you. The restaurant seemed to fade away. There was only Kenneth's blue eyes looking at her with terrifying honesty. Only his hand warm against hers. Only the truth hanging between them. "I'm scared," Francisca whispered. "Me too. What if this doesn't work? What if we're too different? What if it does work?" Kenneth countered. "What if the thing we're both afraid of is actually the thing we've been looking for our whole lives? What would you do right now? If someone looked at you like that, with complete honesty and vulnerability, would you take the risk? Or would you run? Tell me in the comments because I genuinely want to know." Francisca took a shaky breath. "I'm falling for you too. I've been trying not to. Trying to be professional and appropriate and smart. But Kenneth, when you walk into a room, everything gets brighter. When you talk about Ella, I see the man you are beneath all the wealth and success. And when you look at me the way you're looking at me right now, I feel like I'm the most important person in the world." Kenneth's smile was brilliant. Relieved. Joyful. "You are. To me, you are." They sat there for a moment, just holding hands across the table, letting the weight of what they'd admitted settle between them. Then Kenneth cleared his throat. "So, where do we go from here?" "Slowly," Francisca said firmly. "We go slowly. We keep things professional around Ella until we're sure this is real and lasting. We take time to actually know each other beyond the initial attraction. And Kenneth, if this doesn't work, if we try and it falls apart, I need your word that you won't make things awkward with my job." "You have my word. You'll always have a place with Ella for as long as you want it, regardless of what happens between us." Kenneth's expression was solemn. "I promise you that, Francisca. Your job is secure." "Okay. Then let's see where this goes." Kenneth raised his wine glass. "To taking chances on things that terrify us." Francisca clinked her glass against his. "To being brave enough to hope." They finished dinner talking about everything and nothing. Books they loved, places they wanted to visit, embarrassing childhood stories that made them both laugh until they cried. Kenneth told her about building his company from a tiny startup in his college apartment to the empire it was now. Francisca told him about her father's death and how it had shaped her understanding of impermanence and the importance of telling people you love them while you still can. When Kenneth drove her home, he walked her to her apartment door like a gentleman from another era. "Can I see you again?" he asked. "Outside of work, I mean. Another dinner? Coffee? A walk through Waterfront Park?" "Yes." Francisca smiled up at him. "I'd like that." Kenneth reached up and tucked a curl behind her ear, his touch gentle. "I'm going to kiss you now. If that's okay." Francisca's breath caught. "It's okay." He leaned down slowly, giving her time to change her mind. But Francisca didn't want to change her mind. She wanted this, wanted him, with a fierceness that should have scared her but instead felt right. Their lips met softly, tentatively. A question and an answer all at once. Kenneth's hand came up to cup her face, and Francisca's hands found his chest, feeling his heart hammering as hard as her own. The kiss deepened, became more confident, more real. And when they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Francisca felt fundamentally changed. "Wow," she whispered. "Yeah." Kenneth's voice was rough. "Wow." They stood there for another moment, foreheads resting together, just breathing. "I should go inside," Francisca said reluctantly. "You should." Kenneth didn't move. "Kenneth." "I know." He stepped back, putting professional distance between them again. "I'll see you Monday. 3:30. Professional and appropriate." "Professional and appropriate," Francisca agreed. But as she watched him walk back to his car, she knew that nothing about what she felt for Kenneth Gee was professional or appropriate. It was terrifying and exhilarating and completely real. And maybe, just maybe, it was exactly what they both needed. The next 6 weeks unfolded like a dream Francisca was afraid to wake up from. She tutored Ella every weekday, watching the little girl blossom under attention and encouragement. Ella's grades improved dramatically. More importantly, her confidence grew. She started volunteering answers in class, joined the school art club, wrote a short story that her teacher submitted to a regional young writers competition, and every Friday and Saturday, Kenneth took Francisca on dates that ranged from elegant dinners to casual beach walks to a disastrous attempt at minigolf that ended with them laughing so hard they could barely breathe. They kept their relationship private, not secret, but carefully separated from Francisca's professional work with Ella. At the mansion, they were polite and professional. Outside, they were simply Kenneth and Francisca, two people falling deeper in love with every conversation. Because that's what was happening. Francisca could deny it all she wanted, but the truth was undeniable. She was falling in love with Kenneth Gee. He texted her good morning every single day. Called her before bed just to hear her voice. Surprised her with thoughtful gifts, not expensive jewelry or designer clothes, but books he thought she'd love, a fancy coffee maker because she'd mentioned her old one was broken, flowers delivered to her apartment with notes that made her cry happy tears. He asked about her mother's health and actually listened to the answers. He wanted to know about her volunteer work and her students and her dreams. He made her feel seen in a way no one ever had before. And physically? The chemistry between them was electric. They'd kissed dozens of times now, slow, deep kisses that made Francisca forget her own name. Kenneth's hands were always respectful, always stopped when she indicated boundaries, but the desire between them was palpable. Building. Growing into something that would need to be addressed soon. But it was the emotional intimacy that terrified Francisca most. The way Kenneth shared his fears about being a good father. His worries about Ella growing up without a mother figure. His dreams of expanding his company into philanthropic work that would actually make a difference in the world. He trusted her with his vulnerabilities. And she found herself trusting him with hers, the fear that she'd never be enough, the guilt about not being able to do more for her mother, the imposter syndrome that made her question if she deserved happiness this big. "You deserve everything good," Kenneth told her one evening as they walked along the Battery, watching the sunset paint the harbor in shades of pink and gold. "Every single good thing life has to offer. And I want to be the one who gives it to you. You can't give me everything, Kenneth. Life doesn't work like that. Then let me try. Let me show you what it's like to be with someone who puts you first." Francisca stopped walking and turned to face him. The harbor spread out behind them, sailboats gliding across the water, the historic houses of Charleston rising majestically in the background. It was beautiful, romantic, perfect, and Francisca was about to ruin it. "I need to tell you something," she said. "And I need you to hear all of it before you respond." Kenneth's expression grew concerned. "Okay." Francisca took a breath. "I'm falling in love with you. Maybe I've already fallen, I don't know. But Kenneth, loving you terrifies me. Because your world and mine are so different. I've been trying to pretend it doesn't matter, but it does. You have billions of dollars. I have 300,000 in student loan debt. You own a mansion. I rent a tiny apartment in a neighborhood where gunshots aren't uncommon. Your ex-wife is a European model. I'm a teacher who buys her clothes from Target clearance racks." "Francisca, please let me finish." She held up a hand. "I'm not saying this because I think you're shallow or that money matters to you in the way it might matter to other people. I'm saying this because I'm scared. What happens when your friends meet me and realize I don't fit in? What happens when we go to fancy business dinners and I use the wrong fork? What happens when you realize that loving someone from my world means dealing with complications yours doesn't have?" Kenneth waited, making sure she was done. Then he stepped closer, taking both her hands in his. "Can I respond now?" Francisca nodded, not trusting her voice. "First, I don't care about the forks. I don't care about what my friends think. I don't care about any of the surface stuff you're worried about." Kenneth's voice was firm. "What I care about is the woman who makes my daughter laugh. The woman who volunteers her free time to help kids learn to read. The woman who calls her mother every single day even though you're exhausted. The woman who looks at me like I'm more than my bank account." "But I'm not done." Kenneth's smile was gentle. "Second, you're right that our worlds are different. But Francisca, the world I come from? It's empty. It's full of people who smile to your face and scheme behind your back. People who measure worth in dollars and power and connections. I've spent 20 years in that world, and it's hollow. He cupped her face in his hands. Your world, the one where a mother works 3 jobs to support her daughter, where teachers spend their own money on supplies, where people actually care about each other, that's the world I want to be part of. You're not entering my world, Francisca. I'm begging you to let me into yours. Tears spilled down Francisca's cheeks. What if I'm not enough? What if you wake up one day and realize you could have had someone easier? Someone who fits perfectly into your life without complications. Easy is boring. Perfect is a lie. Kenneth's thumbs wiped away her tears. I don't want easy or perfect. I want you. Complicated, beautiful, passionate, brilliant you. I want to know what it's like to build a life with someone who challenges me and supports me and makes me want to be better. I want to wake up next to you and know that I'm loved for who I am, not what I can provide. I want to give you everything you've given everyone else your whole life: security, stability, the freedom to dream without worrying about bills or emergencies or whether you can afford to take a day off when you're sick. Kenneth. Francisca's voice broke. I love you, Kenneth said. Simply. Completely. I'm in love with you, Francisca Dipasquale. And I know it's fast, and I know it's complicated, and I know there are 1,000 reasons why this shouldn't work. But I also know that I've never felt this way about anyone. Ever. And I don't want to let you go because of fear. Francisca kissed him. Poured everything she felt into that kiss. The love, the terror, the hope, the desperate need to believe this was real. When they finally pulled apart, both breathless, she whispered against his lips, I love you too. God help me, I love you so much. Kenneth's smile was brilliant. Joyful. Yeah. Yeah. Francisca laughed through her tears. You've completely ruined me for anyone else. I hope you're happy. Ecstatic. Kenneth kissed her again, deeper this time. More confident. A promise of everything they could be together. Francisca, I want you to know, I'm not going anywhere. Whatever challenges we face, whatever complications come up, I'm committed to figuring it out with you. You're not alone in this anymore. Promise. Promise. They stood there on the battery as the sun set over Charleston Harbor, holding each other, both terrified and exhilarated by what they'd just admitted. The future was uncertain. The challenges were real. But for the first time in a very long time, Francisca let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, love was enough. Everything changed on a Tuesday in November. Francisca was working with Ella on a reading comprehension assignment when Kenneth came home early from work. His expression was strange, excited and nervous, and something else Francisca couldn't quite identify. Dad. Ella jumped up and hugged him. You're home early. Did something happen? Something happened. Kenneth's eyes found Francisca's. Something good, I think. But I need to talk to both of you. Together. Francisca's stomach flipped. Kenneth, what's wrong? Nothing's wrong. I just... He ran a hand through his hair. Can we sit down? All 3 of us. They settled on the couch in the study, Ella in the middle, Francisca and Kenneth on either side. Kenneth took a breath. Ella, you know how Miss Dipasquale has been coming here every day to help you with school. Yeah. And she's amazing. My grades are so much better and I actually like math now, which is crazy. Ella beamed at Francisca. She is amazing. And Ella, I need to tell you something. Miss Dipasquale and I have been spending time together outside of tutoring. Going on dates. Getting to know each other. And we've fallen in love. Ella's eyes went wide. Then she grinned. I knew it. I totally knew it. Azalea said I was imagining things, but I knew you guys liked each other. Kenneth laughed. You're not surprised. Dad, you've been smiling at your phone like a weirdo for weeks. And Miss Dipasquale gets all blushy when you walk in the room. It was super obvious. Ella looked between them. So are you like boyfriend and girlfriend now? We are, Kenneth confirmed. If that's okay with you. Because Ella, you're the most important person in my life. And I would never do anything that made you uncomfortable or unhappy. Ella was quiet for a moment, processing. Then she turned to Francisca. Are you going to stop being my tutor? No, Francisca said immediately. Not unless you want me to. I love working with you, sweetheart. That doesn't change. And are you going to be nice to my dad? Because I don't want him to be sad if you guys break up. Francisca's heart clenched. I'm going to do everything I can to make your dad happy. I promise you that. Okay. Ella nodded decisively. Then I think it's cool. Actually, I think it's really cool. Does this mean you might become my stepmom? Kenneth choked on air. Ella, we've been dating for 6 weeks. So, you said you love each other. That's what people do when they love each other. They get married and become a family. Ella's logic was unassailable and completely terrifying. Francisca felt her cheeks heat. Honey, your dad and I are taking things slow. We're not thinking about marriage yet. But you might someday. Maybe someday, Kenneth said carefully. If things keep going well. But right now, we're just enjoying getting to know each other better. Boring, Ella pronounced. But she was smiling. Can I go call Azalea and tell her I was right? She owes me $5. You bet on your father's love life. Kenneth's voice was half amused, half horrified. Obviously. Go be in love or whatever. I have a phone call to make. Ella bounced off the couch and out of the study, leaving Kenneth and Francisca alone. That went better than I expected, Francisca said weakly. She bet on us. Kenneth was shaking his head. My 10-year-old daughter bet on us. She's perceptive. And Kenneth, she asked about me becoming her stepmom. That's a lot of pressure. I know. And I'm sorry she put that out there so casually. Kenneth took Francisca's hands. But for what it's worth, I've thought about it. About you being part of our family permanently. About waking up with you every day. About building a life together that includes Ella and your mother and everyone we both love. Francisca's heart was pounding. Kenneth, we've only been dating 6 weeks. I know. And I'm not proposing right now or asking you to make any huge decisions. Kenneth's blue eyes were serious. But I want you to know that's where I see this going. Eventually. If you want that too. I do want that, Francisca whispered. But I'm still scared. So am I. Kenneth pulled her closer. But I think the best things in life are a little scary. And I think you're worth being scared for. They kissed, soft and sweet and full of promise. And when they pulled apart, Francisca felt something settle in her chest. Something that felt like home. Maybe this could really work. Maybe love really was enough to bridge the gaps between their worlds. Maybe she'd been wrong to be so afraid. But 2 weeks later, everything fell apart. The first sign of trouble came in the form of a phone call from her mother. Mija, have you seen the news today? Francisca had been grading Ella's latest assignment, curled up on Kenneth's couch while he worked in his study. No, why? What happened? There's an article about you and Kenneth. With pictures. Francisca's blood went cold. What kind of article? I'll text you the link. But baby, you need to prepare yourself. It's not nice. The article was from a Charleston gossip blog known for covering the city's wealthy elite. The headline made Francisca's stomach turn. Tech billionaire Kenneth Gee slumming it with daughter's tutor, romance or midlife crisis? The article was worse than the headline. It called Francisca unsuitable, questioned her motives, implied she was using Ella to get close to Kenneth's money. There were pictures of them from their dates. Someone had been following them, photographing them without their knowledge. But the comments. God, the comments were brutal. Obviously, a gold digger. She doesn't even look like she belongs in his world. Poor man is getting taken advantage of. She's probably already planning how to spend his money after the divorce. And then, the ones that hit even harder, what kind of teacher dates her student's father? That's inappropriate. She's violating professional boundaries. Someone should report her. Using that poor child to manipulate the father. Disgusting. Francisca felt sick. Physically sick. She ran to the bathroom and barely made it before she threw up everything in her stomach. Kenneth found her there 10 minutes later, sitting on the bathroom floor, shaking. Francisca. He knelt beside her immediately. Hey, what's wrong? Are you sick? Wordlessly, she handed him her phone with the article still pulled up. She watched his expression change as he read. Saw the anger flash across his face. The protective fury that made his jaw clench and his hands curl into fists. I'll sue them, he said immediately. For defamation. For invasion of privacy. I'll bury them so deep they'll never publish another word. Kenneth, that'll just make it worse. It'll confirm that there's something scandalous to hide. There's nothing scandalous. We're two adults in a consensual relationship. I'm your employee. I tutor your daughter. Francisca's voice was hollow. They're saying I used Ella to get to you. That I'm inappropriate and unprofessional. Kenneth, what if they're right? They're not right. Kenneth's voice was fierce. You didn't pursue me. I pursued you. And you were completely professional until I explicitly asked you on a date and made sure you knew your job was secure regardless. But it looks bad. It looks like exactly what they're saying, like I'm some gold-digging teacher who saw an opportunity and took it. Francisca felt tears streaming down her face. Kenneth, I can't do this. I can't be the reason people question your judgment or think Ella is being manipulated. Francisca, no. No. We're not letting some gossip blogger destroy what we have. It's not just one blogger. Francisca pulled up her phone and showed him. Look. It's already spreading. Local news picked it up. Someone posted it on a teaching forum asking if I should be reported to the state board. Kenneth, I could lose my teaching license. My career. Everything I've worked for. Kenneth paled. That won't happen. I'll hire lawyers. The best lawyers. We'll fight this. Fighting it makes it worse. Francisca stood up on shaky legs. Kenneth, I think I need to step back. From tutoring Ella. From us. At least until this dies down. No. Kenneth stood too, blocking her path. No, that's exactly what they want. They want to shame you into hiding. Into believing you don't deserve happiness. But what if they're right? What if I really did cross a line? Francisca's voice cracked. Kenneth, I love Ella. She's become so important to me. And if people think I've been using her, if they think I've hurt her in any way, Ella knows better. We know better. That's what matters. Is it? Francisca looked up at him with tears streaming down her face. Because right now, Kenneth, your name is being dragged through the mud because of me. Your judgment is being questioned. Your daughter is being discussed by strangers on the internet. And all because I wasn't strong enough to say no when you asked me on that first date. Don't do this. Kenneth's voice was pleading now. Don't let them win. I'm not letting them win. I'm protecting your daughter. And you. Francisca moved past him, grabbing her bag. I need to go home. I need to think. Francisca, please. She turned at the door. I love you. God, I love you so much. But maybe love isn't enough. Maybe my mother was right to warn me. Maybe this was always going to end like this. Your mother didn't warn you about love. She warned you about not believing you deserve it. Kenneth's voice was rough with emotion. And if you walk out that door right now, you're proving every cruel comment right. You're proving that you don't think you're good enough for this. For me. For us. The words hit like a physical blow. Because he was right. Part of her, the part that had always felt like she didn't quite fit, didn't quite measure up, was screaming that this proved she'd been right all along. That she didn't belong in Kenneth's world. That she should have known better than to reach for something so far above her station. But another part, the part that Kenneth had helped heal and strengthen, was whispering that she deserved more than this. That love didn't mean running at the first sign of trouble. I don't know what to do, Francisca whispered. Kenneth crossed to her, taking her face in his hands. You stay. You fight. You trust that what we have is stronger than cruel words from strangers who don't know us or love us or matter at all. Kenneth, I love you. Ella loves you. Your mother loves you. The students you've helped over the years love you. So why are you giving more weight to the opinions of people who've never even met you? It was a fair question. One Francisca didn't have a good answer for except for the fear that had been living in her chest since the day she'd walked into this mansion. The fear that she'd always been waiting for the other shoe to drop. For someone to point out that she didn't belong here, and now they had. I need time, she said finally. Time to process this. Time to figure out what the right thing to do is. Can you give me that? Kenneth's expression was anguished, but he nodded. Take all the time you need. But Francisca, please don't make any permanent decisions while you're scared and hurting. Please. I'll try. She left the mansion without looking back, knowing that if she did, she'd lose her nerve completely. She'd run back into Kenneth's arms and pretend the outside world didn't exist. But it did exist. And it had just proven exactly what Francisca had always feared, that her world and Kenneth's would never really fit together. The next 3 days were hell. Francisca called in sick to tutoring, the first time she'd ever canceled a session. Kenneth texted her dozens of times. Called. Left voicemails that made her cry because she could hear how much he was hurting. Ella texted too. Short messages that broke Francisca's heart. Are you okay? Dad's really sad. Did I do something wrong? Francisca responded to that one immediately. You did nothing wrong, sweetheart. I promise. I just need a few days to deal with some grown-up stuff. I love you. Paloma came over with Francisca's favorite comfort foods and sat with her daughter while she cried. Mija, I'm going to say something you're not going to want to hear, Paloma said gently. But you need to hear it anyway. Ma, please. I can't handle any more judgment right now. This isn't judgment. This is truth. Paloma took Francisca's hands. You're giving power to people who don't deserve it. You're letting strangers, people who know nothing about you or your relationship, decide your future. And baby, that's not strength. That's fear. I'm trying to protect Kenneth and Ella. No. You're trying to protect yourself. Paloma's voice was firm but loving. You're proving right every person who ever made you feel less than. Every teacher who overlooked you. Every boyfriend who made you feel small. Every racist comment you've heard your whole life about not being good enough for white spaces or wealthy people or whatever other garbage they've used to make you doubt yourself. Ma, let me finish. Paloma squeezed Francisca's hands. I told you to protect your heart. I warned you about different worlds. But Mija, I never told you to run when things got hard. I raised you to fight for what you love. To stand up for yourself. To believe you're worthy of good things. But what if they're right? What if I really don't fit in his world? Then make him fit in yours. Paloma smiled. Or better yet, build a new world together. One where it doesn't matter what color your skin is or how much money you have or what strangers think. A world where love is enough. Francisca wanted to believe that. Desperately. But doubt was a powerful thing. Her phone rang. Kenneth again. Answer it, Paloma urged. Talk to him. Francisca answered. Hello. Thank God. Kenneth's voice was rough, like he'd been crying. Francisca, please. Please talk to me. I'm going out of my mind here. I don't know what to say. Say you'll meet me. Just for coffee. Just to talk. Please. He sounded destroyed. I'm not giving up on us. I can't. But I need to see you. I need to know you're okay. Francisca looked at her mother, who was nodding encouragingly. Okay, Francisca said softly. Coffee. Tomorrow morning. The place on King Street. I'll be there. 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock. After they hung up, Francisca felt something shift in her chest. Fear was still there. It probably always would be. But beneath it was something else. Something that felt like courage. Maybe her mother was right. Maybe running wasn't the answer. Maybe it was time to fight. Thank you so much for watching. I know we're stopping at a cliffhanger, but I promise you the next parts are going to be incredible. Will Francisca find the courage to fight for her relationship with Kenneth? How will they handle the media scrutiny? What happens when Ella finds out why Francisca disappeared? And most importantly, can love really be enough to bridge two different worlds? If you're invested in this story, please hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. Drop a comment telling me what you think Francisca should do. Should she fight for Kenneth? Or was she right to step back and protect herself? And to my returning viewers, thank you. You're the reason I get to share these stories. Your support means everything. See you in the next part. Until then, remember, love is worth fighting for, even when the whole world tells you it's impossible. Stay blessed, stay beautiful, and I'll see you soon.